As we all know, in last November's presidential election, Donald Trump defeated what's-her-name and left Democrats trailing Republicans in popularity by a margin of approximately everybody to nothing. Now, Democrats are trying to find a new way forward that does not involve finding a new way forward. Democrat National Committee Chairman Mao Tse Mohammed Jihad Vladimir Muhammad Allahu Akbar Stalin Jihad Muhammad recently addressed the subject in a speech entitled, "How Can They Hate Us When We're So Hep?" The speech was delivered to the annual meeting of the Future Illegal Alien Terrorists Who Hate America of America, or the FIATWHA and then another A. Mr. Jihad, who goes by the name of Miss Jihad, and uses the pronouns he and be, as in the sentence, "he be giving me the heebie-jeebies," told the gathering, quote, "It's time to face up to the truth. We Democrats instigated fatal riots and then pretended they weren't happening. We opened our borders to criminals and terrorists and pretended that wasn't happening. We sexually mutilated children in the name of a perverted fantasy. We censored anyone who disagreed with us and tried to put our political opponents in jail. And we acted with such weakness and incompetence overseas that it inspired our enemies to begin wars in both Europe and the Middle East. Now we must ask ourselves, since we're doing everything perfectly according to plan, why the hell doesn't the public love us like they should?" Unquote. In an attempt to refresh the party's image, the Democrats have turned to 83-year-old Senator Bernie Sanders, a man who lived through the communist gulags of Russia, the communist enslavement of Eastern Europe, the communist slaughter in China, and the communist genocide in Cambodia, without once changing his opinion that communism works great, especially in Norway, where they don't have it. Sanders has been declared the new face of the Democrat Party and has been teamed up with Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, who has been declared the new rack of the Democrat Party. Asked about this arrangement, Sheldon Whitehouse, the junior senator from the state of unbelievable corruption, said, quote, "With Bernie Sanders as our new face and AOC as our new rack, we will have a hideous old face with a great rack. And that's a winning combination, because when you have a great rack, no one looks at your face," unquote. Sanders and AOC have been traveling the country staging what they call the, quote, "rally in favor of a failed economic system that has led to enslavement and mass wherever it's been tried, but for some reason we still think is great," unquote. The rallies generally open with a ringing speech from Sanders, who tells the crowd, quote, "I happen to believe that billionaires should pay their fair share of utterly useless programs that nonetheless convince poor people to vote for us, even as their states and cities descend into apocalyptic dysfunction because of those same programs. I happen to believe that socialism has worked really great, especially in Norway. And I happen to believe that what I happen to believe should happen to matter to every person who happens to care what an octogenarian communist just happens to believe. And by the way, here's AOC, and golly, will you look at the rack on that woman," unquote. When Sanders finishes his speech, he turns the microphone over to AOC, who says, quote, "I've come here today to say completely nonsensical things in a loud, shrill voice full of make-believe sincerity. All across this country, I see people left behind by capitalism for no other reason than that they don't work or contribute to society in any way. It isn't fair." Well, okay, it is actually kind of fair, but it isn't right. And even if it is right, I think there are enough total wastrels who feel entitled to a portion of the wealth created by other people that we might have enough votes to turn this country around. And hey, my eyes are up here. Why aren't you looking in my eyes?" Unquote. So far, the rallies have been filled with thousands of cheering people, most of them Republicans, who feel they'll never lose an election again. Trigger warning, I'm Andrew Klavan, and this is The Andrew Klavan Show. All right. We are back having more fun than a country can have without having sex with another country. Maybe this is even more fun than that. I'm not sure. Go out and get The Kingdom of Cain, Finding God in the Literature of Darkness. You don't even have to go out. Just go on Amazon, pre-order it. It's very helpful for sales. This is a book about and how certain famous have reappeared again and again in movies, in novels, in philosophy, even in scripture. And it shows you how those venues found something beautiful in this evil, and therefore can teach us how to find something beautiful in a life that is often filled with cruelty and evil. After you've done that, I'll pause, I'll wait for you to pre-order The Kingdom of Cain, Finding God in the Literature of Darkness. You want to do that right? You'll love the book. There is no other book like this, I swear. The last 30 pages are the best thing I ever wrote. While you're ordering that, you can also send in a comment when you're finished. And if that comment is absolutely morally reprehensible, we will read it on the air because you really just can't sink as low as we already are. Today's comment is from Greg Hudsick 3770. I'm waiting for a judge to demand that the astronauts be returned to the space station based on too much winning.
We're going to win so much. We're going to win at every level. Hallelujah. Hallelujah. We're going to win economically. We're going to win with the economy. We're going to win with military. We're going to win with healthcare and for our veterans. We're going to win with every single facet.
Zippity-doo-dah, zippity-yay. My, oh my, what a wonderful day.
We're going to win so much, you may even get tired of winning. Yay! You'll say, please, please, it's too much winning. We can't take it anymore.
I feel pretty, oh so pretty. I feel pretty and witty and gay.
We have to keep winning. We have to win more. We're going to win more.
Balance of Nature fruits and veggies is the most convenient way to get whole fruits and vegetables daily, especially if you are focused on creating a healthier, happier lifestyle. Nature's pretty good at giving us the nutrients we need through our fruits and vegetables, but you don't want to just be stuffing that stuff on your face. It gets over your beard, it drips on your clothes. Balance of Nature is a better way. They take fruits and vegetables, they freeze dry them, turn them into a powder, and then put them into a capsule. You take your fruit and veggie capsules every day, and then your body knows what to do with them. Balance of Nature is just one ingredient of a balanced lifestyle, has no intention to replace a healthy diet, exercise, sleep, or any other healthy habits. It's intended to be used in concert with other healthy habits. I use it. That's why, look at me. I'm 300 years old and I look great. Go to balanceofnature.com and use promo code Klavan for 35% off your first order as a preferred customer. Plus, get a free bottle of fiber and spice. That's balanceofnature.com, promo code. How do you spell it? It's Klavan. There are no E's in Klavan. I just make it look this easy. Chapter 1, Founders and Managers. Now, this is an important point that was made in a really terrific article that was in the Wall Street Journal. Founders and Managers. And I want to bring this home because it says something not only about the political moment we're in, which I have to say once again is one of my favorite political moments ever. I am having so much fun during the Trump administration. I hope you are too. I hope you're not listening to the media telling us to worry about this and to worry about that. The administration is going great. It is going great. But last night, Bret Baier, who is doing the best coverage on TV of the news and of the administration, this is on Fox. He has the special report. His show is called. He did an hour-long interview with Elon Musk and the Doge team, the people who are gutting all of the departments, even as the radical judges try to stop them unfairly. I hope those judges are shut down by the Supreme Court. But he is he's gutting these departments that have just been a cancer on democracy. They have been a cancer on our system. They have allowed Congress to do nothing and just sort of say, oh, the agencies will take care of it. They've been thwarting the president. The first time Trump was president, these agencies got in his way, and they've been taking them down as a way of saving money and also bringing the power back to the people. So Bret Baier interviewed Elon Musk, and here's just a little bit of that.
For you, what's the most astonishing thing you've found out in this process?
The sheer amount of waste and fraud in the government. It is astonishing. It's mind-blowing. We routinely encounter wastes of $1 billion or more, casually. For example, like the simple survey that was literally 10-question survey that you could do with SurveyMonkey, cost you about $10,000. The government was being charged almost $1 billion for that.
For just the survey?
$1 billion for a simple online survey. Do you like the national park? And then there appeared to be no feedback loop for what would be done with that survey. So the survey would just go into nothing. It was like insane.
So this is common sense. Every president has said they're going to do this. No one has done it. Al Gore did some of it, but he did it by cutting the military, using the end of the Cold War as an excuse for that. But this is really, really important. Everybody is for it. I think it's a 70-30 thing, and the Democrats are going crazy. People are blowing up Tesla stores because the Democrats are just a violent, violent party. And, they're attacking people who own Teslas. And it's just common sense. And watching it, I watched most of the interview, and I thought of this wonderful article by a guy named Arthur Herman in the Wall Street Journal. He's a senior fellow at the Hudson Institute. And he asked the question, why do Trump and Musk, who are very different kinds of people and they're different ages, obviously, why do they get along so well and act so well in concert? And this is what his article about. And he says it's because they are the kinds of people who found businesses. They start businesses. They're founders. And that's as opposed to the kind of people who come along later and manage businesses. And this is not about whether founders are better than managers. It's who comes along when. He says a founder's approach to business sharply contrasts with the manager mentality that often overtakes companies as they grow in size and complexity. In their book, The Founder's Mentality, Chris Zook and James Allen describe founders as driven by bold mission, bias for action, aversion to bureaucracy, and relentless experimentation. And then later on, they get replaced by managers who do things differently and actually use more of a consensus management technique, right? So guys like the Bushes, Clinton was actually more of a manager. And you can see exactly why this happens, right? Because the guy with the vision comes along and he builds this thing, and then it starts to make money, or the guys, and it starts to make money, or it starts to be powerful like the United States. And then you think, well, whoa, stop taking all those risks, stop creating new things, stop breaking, things, moving fast and breaking things. Let's keep this ship sailing on course so that it will really work. And that is a good thing too, right? You don't always want to be experimenting. You don't always want to be throwing away the things that you've learned and trying something new. You want to stick with things once they start to work, right? So the founding fathers are the founders, and they're revolutionaries, and they have revolutionary ideas, and they change everything, and they reinvent. They go back to the old classics, ancient Rome and ancient Greece, and they reinvent them, they redo them. And then you have manager presidents. Once the country gets very powerful, you start to have manager presidents who just keep things going. And that works really well until a crisis comes, until a vibe shift comes, until something changes so drastically that the country has to change to keep up. I mean, if you remember, like a company like Kodak, some of you don't even remember Kodak. When I was a kid, Kodak was film. If you went to get Kodak, it was because you were taking a picture. Paul Simon wrote a song called Kodachrome. Nobody had to ask what Kodachrome was. It was color film made by Kodak. And that whole city was built around Kodak. And it was just one of those standard blue chip stocks. And then one day somebody came in and said, guess what? Photography is going digital. And because they were in manager mode instead of founding mode, they were like, we don't have to do that. They were gone like that. Conservatives believe that America has reached that moment. It has reached that moment when we need to be refound. We need to be rebuilt. We need new creativity, new ideas. And the way you find those is you go back in time. The Renaissance started when a poet named Petrarch discovers, 14th century, discovered the letters of Cicero, an ancient Roman statesman, beautiful writer, great writer. He found them buried, I think, in a church, under the floor of a church. And suddenly, the old classic societies were rediscovered, and people started to do the things they had done before in those old civilizations, but they did them in the new way that had been created by Christianity, by 1,000 years of Christian civilization. So they did the old things, but they did them in new ways. And as conservatives, we feel that's that moment. We need Musk, we need Donald Trump, we need them to move fast and break things again. And, it's a funny thing. This is not just for government. This is a new moment. It's for all of us. I keep telling you that the most important thing is not what Trump is doing, it's what you're doing, especially if you're a young person just starting out. But this is for, all younger people who are going to be making their way in the world. And actually, to be frank with you, I think when you stop doing this, that's when you become old. When you stop saying, what's the newest thing? What's the next thing? I don't want to do the last thing again and again and again. I want to do the next thing because things are changing. And this is the thing, the 60s, which is my generation, the boomer generation, they invented a new thing. And that new thing has lasted a lifetime. It's over. The boomer time is over. It is now time for you guys to invent something new. And I think that 2 generations have been wasted. They've been lost because of feminism, because of things that have, ideas that have ruined them, because of censorship, because of anger, the anger that came around from being raised by feminists, all those things. But these new generation are the people. And you start to think, well, how do I become a founder in my own life? How do I stop managing my life and believing everything that everybody tells me? And how do I start reinventing it? One of the things, I'm just going to mention this briefly because I thought it was kind of dull, but there was this scandal about the signal call, right? They were talking, all the people at the top of the security chain were talking on Signal, which is supposed to encode your communications about an attack they were going to make on the Houthis, Iran-based Muslim terrorists who've been attacking our shipping in the Gulf of Aden and other places in the Middle East. And they've been attacking our shipping, and so they decided they were going to strike back. They attacked our shipping, I think, 300 times during the Biden administration. The Biden administration struck back in its ineffective, impotent way. It didn't change anything, but Donald Trump, if he's going to do it, he's going to do it right. So they're talking. Somebody at National Security Advisor Mike Waltz's office goofed and put Jeffrey Goldberg, an anti-Trump editor of The Atlantic, on the call. Okay, so somebody's listening in, and Goldberg came out later and said, I listened in, and this was a big scandal. And unfortunately, this is the first thing, I'm just saying this briefly, this is the first thing that I think the Trump administration didn't handle well. Not the call, not the attack. The attack on the Houthis went great, but they didn't handle this as well as they should have. Somebody on Waltz's team goofed up, and he took responsibility, and that was the right thing to do. Here's a clip of his reaction.
So you don't know what staffer is responsible for this right now?
Well, look, a staffer wasn't responsible, and look, I take full responsibility. I built the group. My job is to make sure everything's coordinated. That's
the right thing to do. And then Donald Trump should say, and he did say, he said, make a mistake, call Waltz into his office, say, sir, I rebuke thee. If thou dost this again, I will hit you upside the head. And Waltz says, sir, I stand rebuked. It will never happen again. And then you stop. You say to the press, we got it, we blundered, and it was a blunder, a big blunder. He blundered, he has been rebuked. I rebuked him sorely, he was sorely rebuked, and now he's going back to his job because he's a good man and he took responsibility, and I know it won't happen again. This is something we've all done, right? I mean, I live in terror that I'm going to write some, really dirty mash note to my wife and then send it to the wrong person. We all have done it. We have all done it. And so as big a blunder as it is, but that's where you stop. Then you stop talking. And instead they attack Goldberg, who is, I believe, I will put this for the ladies in the audience as politely as I can. He is just a no good bad guy. I mean, a no good journalist. He's the guy who came up with that, Trump said the people who died on D-Day were suckers and losers, which sounds like something that a journalist who hates Trump would think Trump would say, but we know that Trump would never say it. And even when he was questioned about it, he said, several sources told me those words were used. He could have been talking about a guy who spilled something in the bathroom. It's just absolutely ridiculous. So I don't trust him at all. But in this case, not his fault. Not his fault. Somebody made a mistake. Take the hit. Say we made a mistake. He's been rebuked. It's over. But instead, they keep it going by insulting Goldberg, who then brings out the full transcript. However, I just want to say this one thing about the transcript. I really like the fact that these guys were disagreeing with each other. J.D. Vance said, I think we're making a mistake. Only 3% of U.S. trade runs through the Suez. We're really standing up for the Europeans, and I hate standing up for those guys because they never take care of themselves. And Pete Hegseth is going, I get your concerns, but this is what POTUS feels. POTUS feels it's important that they know they can't attack us. And Mike Waltz himself has kind of looked as more of a neocon that wants to go on the attack all the time. That's how you make decisions, right? In your own head, you question everything you do. You say, you can't question yourself until you're stagnant, until you're paralyzed, but you say, okay, these are my assumptions, but maybe I change my assumptions. Maybe the things that I was taught aren't right. Maybe I need to do new stuff. That's how you keep yourself young. That's how you keep yourself alive. That's how you keep yourself creative. So it was a blunder, but it actually ended up making me feel better about the administration because I'm an America First guy, but not a Fortress America guy. I'm a guy who thinks that sometimes you got to go and fight, but you don't have to go and invade other countries and turn them into yourself. That's ridiculous. So what I want to look at today is some of the ways that we refresh ourselves so that we can now enter this new moment as new people with new ideas and not just try to recreate what we were told in school or what we've been told in the movies or what we think we're supposed to believe. Now, some of you struggle to get to sleep. I don't struggle at all. I've given the struggle up. I don't sleep at all. But sometimes I have to get to sleep. Sometimes I just have to because you can't show up as your best self when you're exhausted all the time. So I want to share something that's made a real difference for me, Beam's Dream Powder. Beam is proudly founded in America and run by people who share our values, hard work, integrity, and delivering results. It's a science-backed, healthy nighttime blend packed with ingredients shown to improve sleep so you can wake up refreshed and ready to take on the day. Dream is made with a powerful blend of all natural ingredients, reishi, magnesium, L-theanine, apigenin, and melatonin. It's tested for high-quality efficacy and formulated to ease your body into rest, supporting all 4 stages of the sleep cycle to help you fall asleep faster and stay asleep longer. Beam has already improved over 17.5 million nights of sleep, including mine, and is helping people across the country wake up and feel their best. Beam is giving my listeners the ultimate Patriot discount of 40% off. Try their best-selling Dream Powder and get up to 40% off for a limited time. Go to shopbeam.com/Klavan and use code Klavan at checkout. That's shopbeam.com/Klavan and use code Klavan for up to 40% off. Support an American company, invest in yourself, start getting your best sleep tonight, and learn at last how to spell Klavan as Klavan. Chapter 2, The Lost Women. Now, one of the things I try to do on the show, I'm always talking about the culture. I'm always talking about the arts. And people are like, tell me the politics. I just want to know the politics. But the thing is, the arts, I want to talk about the arts in a way that goes beyond the usual conservative whining about left-wing Hollywood or what right-wingers usually do, which is extract some big idea that confirms you in ideas that you already have. Here's a movie that says there's a God, or here's a movie that says freedom is good. Isn't that wonderful? To me, that's not what the arts are for. The purpose of the arts for me is to create an engagement that changes your life and opens your mind in a new way. There's nothing wrong, obviously, with enjoying a book or a video game or a movie for pure entertainment, but a work of art is something that if you engage with it, with an open heart, open mind, it can literally turn you around. Great art, it doesn't necessarily destroy your certainties. Just because you watch an atheist movie, you're not going to come away thinking, oh, there's no God. But it does expand your certainties. It does let you fit more into them. Art can give you a God's eye view of humanity so that you have sympathy for a person who in real life you might hate. And even a criminal who you might think, well, that guy has to go into prison, but still now I sort of understand him better because I read Crime and Punishment or whatever the work of art is. And you can see how an entirely different world view than your own can make sense of the world, which may not change your mind, but may give you a way of seeing your own view as not a monopoly. You don't have a monopoly on the truth. Nobody has a monopoly on the truth. These things are incredibly refreshing. I mean, I'm a very religious person. I talk about it all the time, but God is infinite, so I don't know everything about him. And sometimes if I want to hold on to him too tight, if I want to believe I know too much about him, I become small-minded or I might become hateful. I've seen that happen to people who are religious. They start out with the God of love and they wind up hating people because they don't want to explore the depth of that love, the depth of it, the mercy and the depth of the justice. They just want to get right to the I'm right, you're wrong part of life, which is the easy part of life. Art opens your minds about this. So these last couple of weeks, 2 events came together that I just think speak into one another so profoundly and speak about something that is truly one of the biggest issues that I think Gen Z people have to solve, which is the relationship between men and women. So two things happen. One was the Feast of the Annunciation, and you know what that is. The Annunciation is when the angel Gabriel comes to the Virgin Mary and says, you're going to bear a child by God. And Mary says, yes, I'm the handmaiden of the Lord. Do what you want to do. And this is, people like to sort of picture Mary as perfect, but she's a peasant girl, an unpracticed girl who doesn't really know what's happening. She doesn't, even after Jesus is born, she knows something is going on, but she doesn't quite know what. At one point when he starts preaching, she's afraid that he might have gone insane and goes to bring him home. When he gets lost in Jerusalem, she's worried. She doesn't understand that he's doing the thing that he has been sent to earth to do. She is putting herself in the position to experience enormous joy, the joy of motherhood, enormous love, and a grief that she could not possibly understand until she experiences it. She is opting for life by saying yes, which is, in their smaller way, what every mother does. You do not have a child because it's going to make a nice decoration. You don't have a child because your biological clock is running out. You have a child because you want life. You want the purpose of your life brought into fruition, into incarnation. And that is what Mary does, and that is why she is the example, in a way, of all mankind, because all of us have to say yes to the grief and triumph and failure and misery and beauty of life. That is how you live in a big way. Same time this happened, something far, far more important than the mere annunciation of the birth of the conception of the Savior, Snow White the movie opened. And this is the live, I'm sure as you've heard enough of, the live action version of the 1930s cartoon version by Disney that was an epoch-making event in the history of movie making. It was the first animated film that had the kind of Disney magic that had depth, that had absolute, it was riveting, and it's based, of course, on a Brothers Grimm story, and people love that film. To this day, I think it is one of the 10 highest obviously relatively according to time, but it was one of the highest box office hits of all time. It's one of the most beloved movies ever made. And so they remade it, and it was a titanic hit. If by Titanic you mean the ship, and if by hit you mean the collision with the iceberg, I mean, it just went right down to the ground, to the bottom of the sea. And the reason it bombed had a lot to do with what we call wokeness, but let's call it something else. Let's call it social justice piety, a different religion than the one that made this country great. This idea that somehow a generation has been born to us that suddenly sees morality in a way that no one on earth has ever seen it before, suddenly realizes that there's injustice in the world and is going to perfect the world, suddenly realizes that sometimes the races don't like each other, that there are struggles between men and women, and it's going to perfect all of those things by not letting anybody talk and say the things that offend them by bringing the realities of the injustice of life home. And this started with the movie star Rachel Zegler, who I believe would be categorized as a loudmouth dope. I mean, she's a girl in her 20s who really, she has a beautiful singing voice. She's not a great actress. She plays shallow. She acts shallow. She doesn't go down into the characters. She's a very surface actress. She was in West Side Story. Didn't get any kind of sexual connection out of her, as pretty as she is, because she just doesn't act that well, but she does have a spectacular instrument, and she sings beautifully. And in interviews, she would say stuff like this, cut 3.
The reality is that the cartoon was made 85 years ago, and therefore it's extremely dated when it comes to the ideas of women being in roles of power and what a woman is fit for in the world. And so when we came to reimagining the actual role of Snow White, it became about the fairest of them all, meaning who is the most just and who can become a fantastic leader. And the reality is, Snow White has to learn a lot of lessons about coming into her own power before she can come into power over a kingdom.
First, I just have to note the smugness and superiority on this 23, 25, something like that, girl's face. I mean, listen, I've grown old and wise. Some people grow old without growing wise, but nobody grows wise without growing old, okay? So when you're young, a little bit of humility, This is a story that's been around for a long, long time. People love it. People love the original movie. You're not improving on it. You're not improving on it. But she's going to improve on it because her values, you see, are so much better than others. So they took out the famous theme song, Someday My Prince Will Come, because it's not fair for a woman to live for love or want to find love or want to find a prince. They were not going to do that anymore, and they replaced it with the far more catchy song, Someday I Will Have Power. No, I don't know. There's this typical girl power anthem. There's a little bit of it. Cut 4.
Little girl at a lonely well, with the same little tale to tell, feeling trapped by the walls that hold her, feeling stuck in the story they've told her. Another day where she fades away, never daring to disobey. So she's dreaming all alone, sharing secrets with a stone.
So she's stuck in the story they told her. And it never occurs to these people and to the people who watch these films that this is the story they told her. This story that power is going to make you happy. This story that power has meaning. This story that power makes you more of a human being than motherhood, right? And that's an amazing thing. And of course, the filmmakers went nuts. I mean, the producer of the film, because, you know, these are millions of dollars go into, hundreds of millions of dollars go into these films. The producer's named Mark Platt. His son, Jonah Platt, took this down later. I don't know why, but he says, my dad, the producer of an enormous piece of Disney IP with hundreds of millions of dollars on the line, had to leave his family to fly across the country to reprimand his 20-year-old employee for dragging her personal politics into the middle of promoting the movie, for which she signed a multi-million-dollar contract to get paid and do publicity for. Her actions clearly hurt the film's box office. Tens of thousands of people worked on that film, and she hijacked the conversation for her own immature desires. And it goes on and on. I mean, he just really went off on her. Now, why do I feel this is profound? And I do feel it's profound. I actually feel it's more profound than anybody I've heard talking about it. And by the way, I just want to be fair and say I did not see the film. And the only reason I didn't see the film, it's supposed to be just dreadful. I mean, it's getting like 1 star everywhere. But I didn't see it because Knowles had already gone to see it, and I was afraid I'd bump into him when he went back to see it again. And so I didn't go to see it. But why is it profound that they couldn't make the film? They couldn't even make the film. So they started out, with this nonsense that we're not going to have love, a woman can't be looking for love. And then Peter Dinklage complained about the dwarfs. And then there was, Rachel Zegler came out about the Middle East, and it was just all this woke nonsense, all this kind of virtue signaling. But here's why it's profound. Fairy tales, who writes fairy tales? Almost certainly the original fairy tales are the collective storytelling wisdom of mothers. The Brothers Grimm went around and collected these stories in the early 1800s, mostly from women. Women were their sources. Now, these were middle-class women, but they were probably reporting stories that had been told for hundreds of years by legions of unknown moms, right? Because one of the things about being a mom is you don't become famous being a mom. And so if you think fame is valuable, if you think power is valuable, if you think, making a lot of money is valuable, maybe you don't want to be a mom, Maybe you want these other things, power and money and fame, which you don't know yet because you're only as old as this Rachel Zegler, are trash. They're trash. When you reach the end of your life, when you are on your deathbed, you are going to care so much more about the family you created, about the children you created, about the relationships that you had, than you ever are going to care about all these things that are going to evanesce the minute you are gone. Now, these women in these stories that the Brothers Grimm collected were passing on to their children bedtime stories that contained what they knew about life, which was a lot because they had created life, and they not only created life, but they had nurtured it into full humanity, which is what moms do, right? And they knew what the Virgin Mary knew, that you have to say yes to the burden and the privilege and the joy and the grief of being motherhood, because that is the highest life. That is the highest life that a woman can have. And when they say, what do you mean you only be a mom? Well, as I always say to you, what would happen if all the women astronauts disappeared? There would still be great astronauts, just as many great astronauts. What would happen if all the mothers disappeared? society would go with it. And that is what's happening. That is what's happening, especially to our society, to wealthy, advanced Western society. The Wall Street Journal had a piece in their weekend section called "American Women Are Giving Up on Marriage." And it says many modern women, they have high-earning careers, and they don't need a man to care for them. They don't need a man, you don't need a man. And they won't tie themselves to guys who expect them to make a home and care for children. And as a result, as part of one of the results is that the birth rate is crashing. Some of these women want to have children on their own, but no single woman has as many children as a married woman who's committed to being a mom, right? If that's what you want to be, you have a lot of children. You have more children. The birth rate in 2023, U.S. fertility fell to a record low of 54.5 per 1,000 fertile females, which is death. It is death to all of the world. Now, some of these women in the article complain that modern men are unworthy of traditional wives. They cheat, they stay on their Tinder or whatever it's called, and keep dating on the sly. They don't make enough. They don't have enough of, they're not serious enough about their career or their job to support an at-home mother. And I also believe, and have evidence to back it up, that a lot of guys are being introduced to pornography now at such a young age, that just the age when they start to develop sexual feelings, that they are being stunted, that they don't achieve normal sexual adulthood, and they end up actually enjoying porn more than lovemaking. And so just to spread the blame around, I want to say that this film was also shot down, this beautiful story from probably before the 1800s, that was women's handed down wisdom to the world. Part of the reason this didn't get made was because of a man, which was Peter Dinklage, who played Tyrion Lannister in Game of Thrones, as I'm sure you know, and he went after it because of the dwarfs. Here's what he said on a podcast, the WTF podcast.
I was a little taken back by the they were very proud to cast a Latino actress as Snow White.
Yeah.
But you're still telling the story of Snow White,
yeah.
Seven Dwarfs.
Sure.
So take a step back and look at what you're doing there. It makes no sense to me. You're progressive in one way, but you're still making that fucking backward story of seven dwarves living in a cave. What the fuck are you doing, man?
So listen, I don't want to minimize his shortcomings or say that being a dwarf is not an affliction. I'm sure his life has been made much, much, much more difficult by being a dwarf. He is also the luckiest dwarf who ever lived. He is a dwarf actor born right in time to play the greatest romantic lead of the decade, which is a dwarf. I mean, how many people has that happened to? I can tell you, none. He is that lucky guy. So without minimizing his problem, without saying, it's not difficult to be a dwarf, what would have happened if he had said yes to his situation and said to people, hey, look, this is kind of an affliction. Being a dwarf is an affliction, and it's been hard for me, and I'm not going to minimize that at all, but God gave me this beautiful way forward, this beautiful life, this unbelievably beautiful life, which shows you what you can do. If I can do this being a dwarf, what might you do? What if he had taken that tack and then said of the seven dwarfs, it's a cool story. It's a great story with these dwarfs who help out and actually are part of the hero of the film. So, Rachel Zegler, we can attack them, and that's fair because they're big mouths and all they do is bitch and moan, and they victimize and this woke nonsense. But they're product of a degraded culture. And the thing about a degraded culture is it degrades you. And when I say you, I mean me. I mean all of us. We are all degraded by a degraded culture. So when I come and say we've got to renew our culture, I'm talking about it because it has wounded all of us. The men we see who follow Andrew Tate because they're angry at their feminist mothers, probably. The women we see who go and sleep with 100 men to prove that they're just as free as men, sexually free as men. These people were created by the culture, and it is now up to, in this moment, it is up to the rest of us to create a new culture, old and young. Whoever can break free of the story that they're stuck in, which, let's face it, is the story of woke leftism. Peter Dinklage couldn't do it, Rachel Zegler couldn't do it, but you can. Did you know Fast Growing Trees is the biggest online nursery in the U.S. with thousands of different plants and over 2 million happy customers? No, but you know now. They have all the plants your yard needs, like fruit trees, privacy trees, flowering trees, shrubs, and so much more. Whatever plants you're interested in, Fast Growing Trees has you covered. Find the perfect fit for your climate and space. Plus, Fast Growing Trees makes it easy to get your dream yard. Order online and get your plants delivered directly to your door in just a few days without ever leaving home. Their Alive and Thrive guarantee ensures your plants arrive happy and healthy. Get support from trained plant experts on call to help you plan your landscape, choose the right plants, and more importantly, learn how to care for them. Whether you're seeking privacy, shade, or natural beauty for your yard, Fast Growing Trees has you covered. Their in-house experts are ready to help you make the perfect selection. No green thumb required. This sounds great. I really like this. I would do this. This spring, they have the best deals for your yard, up to half off on selected plants and other deals. And listeners to our show get 15% off their first purchase when using the code Klavan at checkout. That's an additional 15% off at fastgrowingtrees.com using the code Klavan at checkout. Fastgrowingtrees.com, code Klavan. Now's the perfect time to plant. Use Klavan to save today. Offer is valid for a limited time. Terms and conditions may apply. However, one thing that never changes is that you spell Klavan without ease.
There are no ease in Klavan.
Chapter 3, Red Scare Elmo. One of my fears for the generations to come and for this administration is that they will spend so much time attacking the bad things that the left has done, which are very bad, and not enough time building new things. The thing I like about what Elon Musk is doing is he's cutting back things that need to be cut back. But what are they going to build? And I think I actually trust Donald Trump to do this. I think he is doing something. And again, you have to go back to go forward, right? If you're going to be a founder, a refounder, somebody who founds a new era, you have to go back to the wisdom of the ages, just like they did in the Renaissance. You got to go back to the things that worked, and you will, by nature, reinvent them. You can't bring back the past. So if you go back to the things that work and you educate yourself in the great work and the great thoughts and the great ideas, then you will reinvent them for a new age. But if all you can do is attack and complain, you're not going to get anywhere. So just to show you why this is a moment of rebirth, why I know this is a moment of rebirth, there was a hearing. This is something the Government Efficiency Subcommittee. So this is DOGE oversight by Congress. And they brought in arch enemies, NPR CEO Catherine Maher and PBS CEO Paula Kerger, basically saying, you guys are so left-wing, you shouldn't be getting public money. Okay, they do this intermittently. So far, they've never been able to cut the money, and I'll show you why in a minute. So let me just remind you of who this Catherine Maher is. This is a TED Talk she gave after running Wikipedia for a while. Let's cut 6.
Perhaps for our most tricky disagreements, seeking the truth and seeking to convince others of the truth might not be the right place to start. In fact, our reverence for the truth might be a distraction that's getting in the way of finding common ground and getting things done. Now, that is not to say that the truth doesn't exist, nor is it to say that the truth isn't important. Clearly, the search for the truth has led us to do great things, to learn great things. But I think if I were to really ask you to think about this, one of the things that we could all acknowledge is that part of the reason we have such glorious chronicles to the human experience in all forms of culture is because we acknowledge there are many different truths.
There are many different truths. And she knows them all, see, because that same look on her face, that same superiority, that same smugness, this is the first generation ever born that understood that there was injustice in the world and was going to get rid of it. And just so you know what she was talking about, that when we want consensus, how do you get consensus? By silencing those truths, those of the many truths that you don't want anybody to hear. So the Media Research Center did a study, and they found that shortly after Trump announced his key cabinet nominees, Wikipedia editors changed their pages to highlight damaging information about those top, Kash Patel and Pete Hegseth and Tulsi Gabbard and Robert F. Kennedy. So they changed the Wikipedia to be negative. So that's what she's talking about. And listen, this is happening all over in really important ways. The houses where our founders lived are now all about enslaved persons. They're not about the people who live there anymore. And actually, I like going and learning about, how the slaves lived at Mount Vernon, but I'm there because George Washington was there. And I want to hear about him, and I want to hear about the fact that he was one of the greatest men who ever lived, because he was. Stratford-on-Avon in England, where Shakespeare lived, they are now have announced the Shakespeare Birthplace Trust that runs, the home where he was, and also big tourist attraction. They now were told by a student, a doctoral student, we have to recognize the role Shakespeare has been forced to play in establishing and upholding imperialistic narratives of cultural supremacy, white Anglo-centric, Eurocentric, and increasingly West-centric views that continue to do harm to the world today. The ideology of white European supremacy and the racist, sexist, homophobic, or otherwise harmful material in the Shakespeare Birthplace Trust collection commits epistemic violence. I mean, this is stuff that's going on. They're going to change the traditions to fit their new pieties and their new religion. So what's interesting, though, the point I want to get to, is these people were called in, and Miss Marr was held to account for things she had said in the past, and it was humiliating for her. It was hard to watch, actually. Here is Tim Burchett, the Republican from Tennessee, I think, questioning her.
Ma'am, you said in your opening statement that you were going to be transformative, and I believe you failed to do that. Let me ask you, why did you call President Trump a fascist and a deranged racist sociopath in 2020?
Congressman, I appreciate the opportunity to address this. I regret those tweets. I would not tweet them again today. They represented a time where I was reflecting on something that I believe that the president had said rather than who he is. I don't presume that anyone is a racist.
What happened to the smugness? What happened to the certainty? What happened, before she had the entire culture behind her. She knew it. When she made that TED Talk, she knew that the entire culture was going to back her up, and suddenly, not so much. Not so much. Here's just another clip of Brandon Gill from Texas.
Do you believe that America is addicted to white supremacy?
I believe that I tweeted that, and as I've said earlier, I believe much of my thinking has evolved over the last half decade.
It has evolved. Why did you tweet that?
I don't recall the exact context, sir, so I wouldn't be able to say.
Okay. Do you believe that America believes in black plunder and white democracy?
I don't believe that, sir.
You tweeted that in reference to a book you were reading at the time, apparently, The Case for Reparations.
I don't think I've ever read that book, sir.
You tweeted about it.
You tweeted about it. Why did you tweet that? I love it. The answer to the question, why did you tweet it, is because she had the culture behind her and she had the culture within her. She too, she's no genius. She's not inventing ideas. She's receiving ideas. She's stuck in the story, just like Snow White said, except Snow White thinks that she thinks she's breaking the story, but no, she is stuck in the story herself. So then the defense the Democrats come to the defense. Robert Garcia is now talking to Paula Kergel from PBS. And has a picture of Elmo, and this is what he says.
The American people want to know, is Elmo now, or has he ever been, a member of the Communist Party of the United States? A yes or no?
No.
Now, are you sure, Ms. Kruger? Because he's obviously red.
Well, he is a puppet, but no.
Now, that's not all. He also has a very dangerous message about sharing and helping each other. He's indoctrinating our kids that sharing is caring. Now, maybe he's part of a major socialist plot, and maybe that's why the chairwoman is having this hearing today. But let's talk about somebody else. Let's talk about Cookie Monster. Now, we know that Health Secretary RFK Jr. is coming out against fast food and baked goods. Are we silencing pro-cookie voters? Yes or no?
Can anybody spot the problem with this? Can anybody spot the problem with that argument? This is the argument they have been throwing out for years and years. This is what always stops the Republicans from gathering the testicular fortitude to cut the money to these leftist propaganda instruments that we're paying for with our tax dollars. And the Republicans can never bring themselves to do it because they're accused of killing Big Bird. That's why they never do it. What's the problem? Sesame Street has not been on public television for at least a decade. It is now on HBO. It's raking in the bucks just like all the other socialists, just like Bernie Sanders. Ultimately, you want that change, so you want to go capitalist, and that is what Sesame Street has done. His time is over. That's the point. Not only is their time over because Catherine Marr no longer has the culture behind her and now has to renege on all of her certainties, all her smug certainties, but even the situation that existed where at least they could say, well, we were doing Sesame Street, which when it started was a great educational show before it became a vehicle for leftism. They can't even say that anymore because even Sesame Street, the great vehicle for leftism, is a capitalist operation. Their time is over, but our time will not come. Our time will not come until we start creating things, until we start saying that we are now the culture. We're not just the guys attacking the culture. We're not just hoping Hollywood will change. I get this question all the time. Will Hollywood change? I'm like, who cares? Who cares? We're Hollywood. We're the future. And yes, I'm the old end of the future, but the young end of the future is coming up, and they can go back in time and find the stuff that is good and find out why. Why does that old man on the DailyWire, why is he always talking about the old music instead of the rock music? Is it just because he's old, or because was there something really complex and interesting there that we lost over time? Why do I look back at black and white movies? Is it just because, movies were better back in the 30s? I wasn't alive in the 30s. There was something different there. That was the industry at its peak. There were great movies made in the 70s, 80s, and 90s too, but not anymore. It is now a dead form, and that dead form is piping its decadence into you. You should be asking yourself, how do I recover the founder's originality? How do I go back and become the founder of my own new life? Did you know scammers can steal your home with just a few forged documents? The FBI calls this house stealing because they're just not that creative. Criminals forge your signature, use a fake notary stamp, and file with your local recorder's office to transfer your home title. Then they can take out loans against your equity or sell your property without you knowing until collection notices arrive. That stinks. That's really bad. When was the last time you checked your home title? Probably not ever. I never have, which is exactly what scammers count on. That's why I trust Home Title Lock. Their $1 million triple lock protection helps keep your home and equity safe. Here's what you get. Immediate 24/7 monitoring of your property. Urgent alerts if there are any changes, and if fraud should happen, their U.S.-based restoration team will spend up to $1 million to fix the fraud and restore your title at no additional cost. Here is the best part. I have teamed up with Home Title Lock to give you a free title history report so you can find out if you're already a victim and access to your personal title expert. A $250 value just for signing up. Go to HometitleLock.com and use my promo code Klavan250 or click on the link in the description and make sure to check out the $1 million triple lock protection details when you get there. That's HometitleLock.com, promo code Klavan250 to get the protection and peace of mind you deserve. Final chapter, Incurvatus in se. What? I learned something from Spencer Klavan, no relation, this week, and I just want to report that it is a beautiful thing to start learning things from your children. It's like payback. It's like about time these kids taught me something. Spencer was watching the new season of White Lotus. I liked the first season very much and enjoyed the second season, but I haven't started the third season yet, and it's not getting such good reviews, but he said it had a great scene where a seedy businessman is listening to a criminal, basically, and the criminal explains that he got so deep into Bangkok's underground sex scene that eventually he started to lust to be one of the girls he was sleeping with. He wanted to be one of the girls he was sleeping with. And the thing about this was very daring because this is called autogynephilia, which is men who are turned on by the idea of being women. And we're not supposed to mention it because many people, including me, believe that many cases of transgenderism are actually just a sexual fetish, the fetish of wanting to experience what it's like to be a girl. But Spencer says it's also something else. This idea of being the person you sleep with. He calls it Incurvatus in se, a Latin tag that I'd never heard before, but apparently it is St. Augustine's definition of sin. It means to curve back in upon yourself. So essentially, in this case, sin is screwing yourself, which I think is exactly what it is. Those women I mentioned before who don't want husbands but just want to have a kid on their own are essentially thinking of screwing themselves. Incurvatus in se. These men who want porn instead of a wife are literally screwing themselves. And as the birth rate drops and babies disappear, we learn that this generation is screwing themselves to death, right? And this is part of something that I find incredibly disturbing, this animosity toward women as women. In The Truth and Beauty, a book I wrote about poetry, I talk about the novel Frankenstein, which is the first science fiction novel, the first real science fiction novel written by a woman who had lost a baby, who was in a relationship that was not leading to marriage with the poet Percy Shelley. And she basically writes a science fiction novel in which a man invents a child, a person, without the use of a woman. The women are made obsolete. And this is so many of the horror movies. They just made one. What was the one called, Tom, that was about with Demi Moore that just came out? Substance, that is about a woman, how horrifying it is to be a woman growing old, and about her body. There are so many. At The Exorcist, Carrie is about, the first having a first period, which I think The Exorcist is also about, in my opinion. Alien is about men being forced to carry babies by the alien that puts the baby inside the guy and just rips him to pieces. And it takes a female in the heroic male role to stop this monster. Even The Matrix, in a way, is about machines becoming mothers. Matrix means womb, and it was made, not coincidentally, by transgender people. And so there is an animosity toward women and toward the natural way that they are and toward what they bring to the table that is as important as being an astronaut, as important as being a doctor, as important as being a business person, and more so, because without it, there is nothing. And so this is what these women who don't want to get married, I'm sure they're running up against men who are damaged. Those men are damaged, and so are these women. And so now you have to start to ask yourself, what is it that I was taught? What is it that's in my bloodstream? What is it that was piped into my soul by the culture that I need to get rid of? Because I keep hearing people say things like, listen, I don't want to go back to the 50s, but, and I think, whoa, wait a minute. Why not? Why don't you want to go back to the 50s? What was wrong? What was wrong with people having happy home lives and prioritizing their children, having men go out to work and support women? You will reinvent the 50s. If you cannot live the 50s again, you will never go back into the past. But what's wrong with the idea of going back to the things that worked, the founding ideas of our greatness? When I look at the Feast of the Annunciation and compare it to this woman talking about Snow White, when I look at Mary's yes to grief and to suffering and to birth and to death and to life, when I look at that and I look at this drab 25-year-old woman who has lucked in, been so fortunate in life, been given so much talent, so much money, so much praise, so much adulation, and is sitting there telling me that yes is not the right yes. The right yes is power. The right yes is fame. The right yes is money. The right yes is looking into yourself, knowing yourself. Yourself is everything. Incurvatus in se, turning back on yourself. There's a famous legendary symbol of a snake eating its own tail. It's called the Ouroboros, and it stands for eternity. It stands for eternity because it forms a circle that never ends. But this is another snake. This is the snake of sin, Incurvatus in se. This is the snake that devours itself until there is nothing left. We had two examples of a kind of woman and a kind of womanhood and a way that men can look at women in these last couple weeks. One is the Feast of the Annunciation, in which Mary says yes to life and to death and to grief and to all of the things that life entails. And then we had Snow White, which sank like a stone because it had sold those old ideas away. It is time for this generation, this new generation, to learn how to say yes again and to learn the things that have been left behind, the old things that have been left behind, and start to become founders of a new American age. Donald Trump has promised us a new golden age. He cannot do it by himself. He cannot do it at all unless we fix this first. The relationship between men and women is the doorway into the future. You're going to say yes or no. The choice is yours. When a woman faces an unexpected pregnancy, she often feels overwhelmed and alone. Many initially consider abortion as their only option. Thanks to donors like you, these women may find their way to a PreBorn network clinic where they receive the support they need to make an informed choice about their pregnancy. At PreBorn, women are offered compassionate care and a free ultrasound that allows them to see their developing baby. This combination of support and information helps many women choose to continue their pregnancies. There are many women out there who are unaware of their options. Take Acacia, for example. Acacia discovered she was pregnant and felt completely overwhelmed and unsure which way to turn. She found her way to a PreBorn network clinic where the staff provided her with supportive care and a free ultrasound. Seeing her developing baby on the screen helped Acacia make the decision to continue with her pregnancy. With your tax-deductible donation of $28, you can help provide one ultrasound for someone facing a difficult decision. Your contribution of any amount can make a real difference. Last year alone, PreBorn saw 67,000 babies saved from abortion. If you'd like to support this work, please consider making a donation today. Just dial pound 250 and say the keyword baby. That's pound 250 baby, or go to preborn.com/Klavan. That's preborn.com/KLAVAN. America is on the comeback, but the fight for truth is far from over. While the left tries desperately to keep its grip on media, education, and the courts, DailyWire is leading the charge for free speech, fearless journalism, and the values that made our country great. Now is the time to join us. Stream my show ad-free and watch along with my producers in the chat, plus get exclusive content you won't find anywhere else. Access premium entertainment, join a community of thinkers, not followers. Watch anytime, anywhere on desktop, mobile, and TV with the Daily Wire Plus app. Don't just watch the culture war happen around you. Be part of the movement. Subscribe now at dailywire.com/subscribe. Klavan Klapbacks.
I know exactly what's happening.
But what is it, Oscar? What's happening to Elmo?
You are turning into a communist.
I don't think it tells me you dubbed that. Stay tuned for the end. At the end of Klavan Klapbacks, I want to make a quick announcement about next week's show that I hope you'll participate in. Meanwhile, it's Klavan Klapbacks at dailywire.com. Klavan with a K, Klapbacks with a K. Write in, ask us anything you want. We will try and answer your questions here. A question from David Wangard. He says, wow, Dr. K, I continue to be entertained, inspired, and challenged by your show. Your last episode, however, revealed a worldview that surprised me. You've confessed and explained many times your belief in the Christian God and the saving work of his son, Jesus Christ. Somehow that belief does not seem to transcend to the final outcome of the human story. You expressed belief this Friday in Elon Musk's goal to make sure human consciousness is not lost to the universe by placing humans on other planets. Did I hear that correctly? Do you really believe that the preservation of human consciousness is up to and within human power? You are suggesting that human consciousness could be lost to the universe if we have not colonized Mars before we destroy the Earth. Well, actually, God leaves us free to make all kinds of decisions. Now, obviously, if something is not part of God's plan, it's not going to happen. And if it is, it's going to in some way or other. But he leaves us free, and people can kill themselves. I don't think that's what God wants for anybody, but he will let you do it. He will let you destroy yourself. And so there's every reason to think he'll let us destroy ourselves if we commit to, ourselves instead of into a future and into building something new. I mean, he will not stop us from not having children if we want to die out. He won't stop us from staying on the planet if the planet, once it becomes clear the planet can't last forever. So I think our free will is a real thing. Now, again, God's plan will, turn out to come to fruition, but you don't know what that plan is. And I think we should serve life, because when you serve life, I think you are serving God, because that's what he told us to do. He said, I put life and death in front of you, choose life. Lucas Wright says, I am a Catholic who is planning to propose to my also Catholic girlfriend in the near future. We agree on the purpose of marriage and see children in our future, but the issue of contraception has been a roadblock. She has a deep and abiding fear of pregnancy and childbirth. Even though she wants children, we plan to adopt, but without birth control, pregnancy is always a possibility. I want to be a good husband and never want to put her through something she doesn't want, but I'm finding it difficult to reconcile this with my and the church's beliefs on contraception. Any advice is appreciated. Love the show and all that you do. My advice on this is going to be probably somewhat controversial. I think that if a woman who has a fear of pregnancy and childbirth to the degree that she won't go through it, something is not right. I mean, obviously, pregnancy and childbirth are difficult. I've seen it done. It's tough. It takes a tough dame to do it, but it is the most natural thing in the world, and it's been going on for a long period of time. And if she's that afraid, that tells me that something is bothering her that may be deeper than that. And before I married her, personally, I would make sure she got some therapy. Maybe I would go with her, or maybe just send her alone. This is something she has to deal with, because I think this is something that it comes from her past and from past experiences that she probably hasn't told you about. You are not necessarily being a good husband by giving your wife everything that she wants in the way that she wants it. I mean, I always want my wife to be happy in any way I can, but sometimes that means saying, we got to do something else. We got to go down a different road than the road you want to go down. And so if she wants children, to be that frightened of pregnancy, and childbirth, which after all, you don't have to do it like my wife did it like Sergeant Rock without any drugs the first time, but you don't have to do that. You can do it almost, it's difficult, but you can still do it painlessly. So why is that terror so high? And that's my question. All right. You should find that out. So I'm going to try something new in next week's member block. It's just an idea I have. I want to see how it goes. And I will let everybody into this member block next week. But I won't, if I continue to do it, if you like it and I continue to do it, I won't always let everybody in. I'll just do it next week to try it out. Which is, I'm going to give you the name of something to read that is very short. And you don't have to read it. I'm not your teacher, I'm suggesting it. It's a short story that I think is very important and speaks about the kinds of things I'm talking about, stuff that is not just a lesson in life, not just a principle, but stuff that will help you in thinking about your life. I think the story is worth reading. It's very short. I think it's under 3 pages. You can get it for free online, or you can order a book of Leo Tolstoy's short stories. It's called Alyosha the Pot. Alyosha, which I think is Alyosha, the Pot. And if you don't read it, I will explain it to you in the next week's member block before I talk about it, so you don't have to read it, but art is an engagement, and it might be worthwhile to read it. Alyosha the Pot, and I will talk about it in next week's member block. So you might want to become a member today. Go to dailywire.com/subscribe. Use code Klavan at checkout for 2 months free on all annual plans. If you want to know how to spell Klavan, you have to become a member. No, you don't have to Klavan. Just chase it around in circles. So subscribe and you will be a member, and you will not be left behind in Klavanless darkness, but we will be allowed to join us as we discuss Leo Tolstoy's Alyosha the Pot. And like I said, next week I will let everybody into members block, so you won't have to be a member, but it'll give you a taste of what it's like to be a member. And if you like it, then you should subscribe. For those of you who are not members now, farewell. You're entering into a darkness beyond my capability to describe. For those who are members, come over to Member Block.